Michael, Merry Christmas, mate. How you doing? Thank you for coming on our annual Christmas special episode. It's lovely to have Dictator back on the podcast.
Thanks very much, man. Thanks for having me. It is Christmas indeed. Representing. I wasn't sure this year if I was going to decorate my office, but I was like, nah, I have to. I decorated just for this podcast, right? No, but it's good to see the trees getting represented, you know?
No, for sure. It's lovely to see you again. And I between yourself doing the live podcast we did last year at the Fringe and Zach, this is the Dictator hat trick on Just Get a Real Job. So this is the hat trick episode of you guys. So
nice. Hopefully we just continue growing. I expect to do at least one podcast per year going forward.
Definitely. Definitely. No, more so no matter how big you guys get. What another brilliant year. You've ticked off lots of stuff on the bucket list. Just to recap, because we found lots of new listeners, which has been amazing this year. And they might not have heard your old episodes. And I'd actually urge them to go back and listen to our live podcast at the Fringe last year because it was a fucking brilliant night and it's a great episode. But who are Dictator? Give us a quick recap if for the new listeners that have found this podcast.
Sweet. Very unprepared for this. I'm always unprepared for this. But we're a four-piece band, right? We're from Livingston, West Lothian. Not that matters where exactly in Scotland we are. But look, I always try and describe our stuff as it's a wee bit quirky. I think it's like quirky indie pop, we'll call it. But I don't know, it's mixed with hip hop and stuff like that. I think every band under the sun tries to describe their music as a niche, right? So they're like, oh, you guys will never have heard of us before, man. And it's like, yeah, I mean, you're like, oh, no way. It's just it's this other band in this genre. So quirky indie pop, we'll call it. We like hip hop beats, and then I sing over the top of them. That's about as simple as it gets. So now, man, we've been a band for a couple of years now. We've released an EP, in the process releasing another one, and hopefully, assuming all goes well, an album very, very shortly, which we'll talk about later.
No, it's really exciting. And I was saying to you off air before we start recording, like it's kind of a good time to have you on. This will obviously go out just before Christmas, but in January, you've got a lot of good stuff going on. As you mentioned, is it the 25th your new EP comes out?
So we've got so it's later in January. Basically we've been releasing, so we started releasing it 2 months ago, and all going well. The thing is with this stuff is we're doing like a really limited press on vinyl, and so like you have to sacrifice your own version of a timeline whenever you do stuff like that. So yeah, all going well that date. We'll see, but we're 2 tracks in. We've got another couple of tracks to go. And actually, so far the feedback's been class. We've also got an East Coast tour coinciding. East Coast as an East Coast of Scotland, which will be good. But yeah, man. So by the end of January, hopefully have the EP out. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, and you're even touching down in my home kingdom of Fife for a night as well, Dunfermline, representing.
Indeed, exactly. No, buzzing, man. Playing PG Malloy's, which is it's really weird because it's such a cool venue. But it's really like it's hard because one of the hardest things that I say hard, like I mean, it's not exactly hard. It's but because you have Edinburgh and Glasgow, it's like your main bases within the in Scotland. Playing somewhere like Dunfermline is hard because it's really close to Edinburgh and not too far away from Glasgow. So it's kind of like you're playing to your home crowd. So actually for this tour, obviously you've seen where we're playing, but we've kind of purposely not played Edinburgh or Glasgow in the hope that more people come along to Dunfermline because it's such a quality venue. And also really kind of it goes under the radar, but the venue owners are amazing. Like they're really, really good and just champions in new music. Like we were lucky to play there for the independent venue week and stuff. And just sometimes when you click and like, especially in this industry and no doubt your own, that people are out to get something all the time, right? Including us at times. But I don't know, the guys are just brand new. They're really, really supportive. They want to see you do well instead of make you sell tickets. They would rather that you have, you know what I mean? Like they want you to have a good night in their venue. It's class. That's why bands like the Snuts have played there. Like, yeah, I mean, and they keep going back because the venue owners are class.
So it was really good. Yeah. And as we'd spoke about before, when we'd had you last on the show that we did live one, like it's so important to like tour more local places in Scotland and the UK as well, because music's becoming so expensive. People are being priced out of music, and it's vital that like we're able to still service those venues and let people hear music, because it's really hard now.
Yeah, I think as well, man. Like, we could get onto a huge big talking point about like the monopoly that Ticketmaster and Live Nation have over the entire market, right? Fascinating. I don't know if you know much about it, but basically, like that, the dynamic pricing with Oasis has brought that into the spotlight.
100%. It's crazy. But I spent 5 hours doing that, you know.
Did you? Did you get one?
We did actually get 2 tickets.
I never even tried, mate. I'm just my thing is to try, and the only reason that I'm in this business is to try and get big enough that I get offered some freebies close at the time. No, but genuinely, they own a lot of the venues in the world, not just America anymore. They own a lot of the venues in the world, and actually a lot of the artists that go and tour these venues, and therefore the pricing. And without being like mad negative, I genuinely find it really fascinating. It's our industry, so to call it, right? So you kind of have to be clued up on it. And what it's actually doing is it's making these independent venue owners almost like giving them impossible conditions to succeed, because there's just not a lot of money in it anymore, but not even to the point where people make money. There's not even like a sustainable amount of money for these small venues. And like, we'll be fine. Like we'll find ways. The game changes for a musician. The game changes. Like, we can still let people hear our music. That's the heart. That's our mission. But actually, if you're a live venue owner, man, you need to have this kind of carousel of bands and genres and people who want to come and gig. But people don't come along to your venue because suddenly they're paying 300 quid for an Oasis ticket. They don't have the 5-10 quid to come and watch a local band anymore.
Knock-on effect.
Mate, it's like, they're supposed to be like, we'll get very deep very quick, but it's supposed to be an ecosystem of this stuff. You know what I mean? You have to have grassroots in order to get that top echelon. And what's actually happening is it's kind of like they've just marketed the top, and they're really cashing in at the top. And I sound a little bit like chip on my shoulder. I honestly don't mind it. Not against these people. It's just that talking about things like venues like PG Malloy's, will PG Malloy's be a venue in 10 years? I hope so. And bands like us want to continue playing these venues. But yeah, so it's a really good thing, man. And I know we spoke about it last time, and that's at the heart of what we want to try and do, like to continue. You know what I mean? We just want to fill venues like that if we can. We're lucky if we're able to. Even like Sneaky Pete's our favourite venue in probably the world, right? We love it. Doesn't really get much further than that. You know what I mean? So
no, it's brilliant. And I think you guys reposted this on the band page as well I was going to say last year. We're still in this year so far. Earlier this year with Oasis, but like something really interesting just to touch on what you said was that there was like a retweet about all the venues when Oasis did their first ever tour as a band. Most of them are closed now, and you wouldn't get I think you would struggle if a working class band to become an Oasis band now, to become that level. It's never not there. The funding is not there unless you're really lucky.
I think like we actually, I can't remember where I was on another podcast a couple of days ago. Just podcasts like left, right, and centre, man. But genuinely, we touched on that subject. I mean, it's such a cool thing to talk about, right? Because the Russia, what can happen though is sometimes you can put a negative spin on it. So actually, like what I was talking about before was actually about like when I said we'll be all right. We've got this worldwide platform. We've got social media. We've got the ability for people who, and I mean never, would have been able to hear our music before, right? So it's a positive and a negative, right? So like the world's evolving, we're evolving, the whole thing's evolving. So like, let's just imagine that like when Oasis were gigging in these venues, who were their frames of reference? Like they had the Beatles and stuff like that, and they played in these little pubs, right? And it's kind of like, what was their version of that then? So they would have probably thought, oh, you could never do this anymore. Like they probably thought it'd be impossible for a band to reach the height of the Beatles, for instance, right? That would have been their thinking, and that's so hard for us. And then now we're looking at Oasis going, wow. But you look at the time they've been about, you look at the fan base they've got, the culture that they managed to kind of bring. But what we need to do is we just need to find out what the new game is, right? Yeah. But that doesn't make it easier for independent venue owners, because we want to play gigs, we want people to hear our music, and we want to be producing it all the time. But how can they be the same? You know what I mean? Like streaming's killing the royalties on music that you used to get, right? But also the volume, the people that can hear your music might actually equal it out over time. So it's hard, but it's hard, man. It's hard. It's a good discussion for people who maybe are on the fringes of it or don't fully understand it. But when you start seeing a lot of big artists throwing away their labels now and rejecting a lot of it, you're actually starting to see this through the stories they tell, a real insight into how difficult it is to almost be that Oasis band anymore, because if you are, it's not actually that enjoyable because of the grueling amount of stuff you've got to do to kind of do it. So yeah, but look, I don't want to be all negative and dejected, because actually what we don't see is what's in front of us. We don't have a clue. So actually, what does it look like? Imagine we hit the jackpot and I don't even know the album goes platinum, baby, right? But, yeah, exactly. But what does that look like? You know what I mean? What does that look like? Because then it will not be the same as what you think. So it won't be like, the expectation will be completely different. And actually, I think that's why, don't know how we've got here, but when we talk about imposter syndrome and stuff like that, it's because you're not seeing the same thing that you've seen happen to someone else.
Yeah.
So the expectations. So I'm glad that people are chatting about it. I'm glad people are aware of it, but also, what the hell are we doing to try and kind of change it for people who are in that ecosystem of musicians? Because I think musicians, yes, they're the heart of it, and they're also up against it in certain ways. But what else? Everybody else is. Everybody else, you know? And ultimately, the venues who are charging X on merchandise and Y on that aren't doing it because they want to absolutely scupper the artist. They're doing it because they kind of need the money. But then there's a clash there. It's hard, mate. So fingers crossed it's that changing.
Yeah, for sure. I was listening to your former collaborator, Bems, on David McIntosh, who's an amazing podcaster as well. He was on his show a couple of weeks ago, and it was a great episode. I'd recommend people go and listen to it. But Bems was talking about like the importance of having someone, and it's even harder in the genre of music he's in as well, because even less of that. But it's just the importance of having someone established in that genre to like help you get seen and to help give the area you're in like more prevalence and more attention. And I think that's really important as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like you've seen it with West Lothian through Lewis Capaldi, the Snuts. The kind of up and coming ones, Luke Volpe, you've got Mark Chapin, Bicycle Thieves, you've got ourselves, Jodie, actually Sylvia, she's got
another former guest.
Yeah. But genuinely, it's like it's really cool, because actually there's like an ecosystem there. You know what I mean? And ultimately, there's younger bands that we know who we really like. We'd kind of dig what they're doing, and I know for a fact that if we got good gigs, if we went on a UK tour that, as we keep calling, as a big boy tour, right? When you're playing like probably 1,000 cap venues and you're able to kind of comfortably sell them out, that's the kind of marker for where we want to get to at some point. And there's no guarantee with that. But if there is, I know for a fact we'll have Livingston bands supporting us. And then ultimately there's Livingston bands there coming along, doing whatever, West Lothian bands playing in places they probably wouldn't have. And that's happened all the way through, which is class. So yes, it's really hard to get that established act. But also, you look at Snuts, for instance, like we're in a little bit of a bubble up here. And what you kind of do is there's a million bands in a million places. Then actually there could be an amazing band that you want to give an opportunity to because you're a champion of them, and maybe they're really, really sound and you really believe in their music and stuff like that. And so it's sometimes that thing of like, you don't want to be too nepotism. You know what I mean? You want to actually give other people opportunities. I don't know, it's a tough one, but it's cool to see people like Bems going on and getting the success that he's won. He's also becoming a bit of a cultural figure, which is class. You look at what he does with Celtic and stuff like that, and just like who he is, and but it's tough for him as well. Speaking to him like as a friend, as in Zach's really friendly with him, and getting the kind of like, oh mate, things are going really well. Hearing his version of like, oh mate, this is hard, it's mental. Because on the outside you're like, oh, he's got all this stuff. Celtic and EAFC are getting involved with him, man. Tell me what else you would want in your life, you know? So
But again, this is the thing, because we haven't properly seen each other since we did the show last year. And from social media, we both look like things are going great, but it doesn't always mean that they are necessarily always feeling great. That's the other thing I'd always say to people, because I get people coming up to me all the time going, oh, like blah blah, and things have gone really well for me this year personally. I feel lucky, but it doesn't always mean that it got everything sorted, etc., etc. It's all everyone's the same. So.
Yeah, no, exactly, man. But that's social media, isn't it? And that's that's the kind of crux of it. But it's good. But the thing is it's like try to use it without getting overwhelmed by it and stuff. And also, like, people kind of show like the nitty gritty of it. Like, it's not that like here's the not so good parts and stuff like that. And I think that's good in some ways. But I also think it's just sometimes better just to chill. Then you didn't have to show anybody anything. You didn't have to, like me personally. I remember I got right into Instagram. but I was getting these mad dopamine hits, right? Where I was just like, just anything I done, like, which I used to do like these wee Instagram stories, and like, I used to get really good reaction, really good, like people messaging and getting them to vote on stuff like that, and it was class. And I realized I was getting caught up in it. Like I was constantly checking my phone, and I was getting these wee mini dopamine hits of like, oh my god, like, you know what I mean? Like, and I was just fixed. And what it actually meant was
24/7, man. That's what I feel like I need to get out of this because I run everything myself. It's so hard, like.
Yeah, it is, but it's hard not to. What I actually realised though is that like taking a wee step back for that is really positive, right? Because it almost dulls the real world around you, right? Excuse me. And that's the scary thing with social media, because it's you start getting caught up in your own image instead of just genuinely focusing on your feet in front of you. And I think that's where probably in the last year or two, I've completely quietened down on social media. And it's not the best for the band. It's not the best for growth. It's not the best for all these things that are positive things, but it's the best for me. And if it's the best for me, it means that I'm going to continue writing music forever. And so then ultimately it's like, well, that is what it is. You know what I mean? So like, it still means I can have fun with it. It still means that we're posting and our social media is like, we enjoy doing some of it. But what we actually do now is, we'll do things like music videos and really invest in content that we enjoy making. I'll record covers now. I'll do things that I actually feel like are worthwhile doing instead of just constantly being hooked onto my phone, because then I can get some space from it and then think. So, yeah. So don't get caught up in it, mate, or get someone in. Get someone else in. Get someone else to do it.
Definitely. Outsource. Well,
exactly.
You know, we got very deep very quickly, as we always do.
I know, mate. Sorry.
On the podcast. I'm going to sort of scatter. So just for it, I'm going to ask you Christmas themed questions, some New Year themed questions, and then questions about the band. But a good one to start is like, so if the band were all doing Secret Santa with each other, what do you think everyone would? What would you get for the? I mean, I might be spoiling some gift ideas here, but what would you buy for each other members of the band?
That is a tough one. I think what I would buy Alan is a crash mat, right? Because he slams. He's got the biggest, bulkiest stuff. He's a drummer. He's got the biggest, bulkiest stuff, and I'm not. He's just got this blissful ignorance to the surrounding world when he's moving his stuff, right? And I mean that, like, we'll just be standing there, and all you hear is this big thud, and it's like, Boof! And that's he just looks, and we're like, "You all right?" And he's like, "Yeah, I just put my stuff in." He like slams it in the flare. So for me, a crash mat that I could always just chuck under Alan, that would be his Secret Santa gift. What would I get Zach? That's a hard one. He's got I know exactly what I'd get Zach. It's all about equipment, right? Oh wow, we've just went zoomed in.
You need to click that, but I'll just leave it alone.
Did you click that?
I didn't mean to. I like caught with the button.
Closer, man. But the one thing I would get Zach is there we go, is a smaller box for his stuff, because this guy has the biggest case I've ever seen in my puff. Right, it is like literally bigger than him, and he's got tiny wee pedals. So what I would do is I would get him either a new pedal board that was actually sufficient, or a new travel case that actually was the size of his pedal board, instead of a huge big flight case that could probably survive a nuclear war, right? But it doesn't have to do that. It just has to survive a van journey to Birmingham, right? So I would just get a wee bit smaller than that. For Joe, now, what would I get Joe? I would get him a new pair of sliders. He always has his toes out. So I would actually try and get like a covered pair of sliders, a pair of Crocs for Joe, so that when he's feeling a wee bit like, Joe's that guy. Joe's the free flowing. Joe's the Aussie guy, the guy who'll come in with the open toed sandals, right? Ain't for me, not here. Pair of Crocs so that we can hide those toes for everybody.
Class. He was an absolute hero at that live print show we did. What an absolute hero. He was the star of the show.
He had his engagement party the other week, and you should have heard that. Really? You should have heard his speech. Wow. It was inspirational, truly, for generations to come.
Do you remember that night we had a heckler guy come in? There was a steaming guy came into our. If you listen to the episode, it's actually all in there. But this guy came in, and I was trying so hard to like keep hosting the show. He was chatting away to us. I mean, we did all right considering. I think he didn't disrupt us too much, but it was an experience.
what was mad is the heckle's fine. Didn't mind that. That's part of the show. Like as in just when you go and do a live thing. I also love it when you do when we do a gig. I love people just like not like heckling, not like being an absolute like, I mean, but genuinely just being able to kind of do like a speak to them is class, because ultimately what you do get is you get the opportunity to like pivot, right? Used to be like mad scared about like this thing of I never used to speak in front of anybody on stage. Now it's part of the show. We love it. I genuinely love speaking to people, and it's because like there's a wee door, and then you ask something or you do something, and then you're in. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's terrible. It doesn't matter. Even if the worse it is, the funnier it is, right? Because then ultimately, if I like crash and burn, they'll just take the piss at me when we get back. So it's like stuff like that. So like what happened with him is he gave us the wee challenge. It was like, blah, blah, blah. Worst part was after the podcast, that was the green light to come up and speak to us at the bar, and he wouldn't leave us. That was the issue. Now today with the podcast, the fact he was absolutely out his tree and he was coming up and telling us, and look, no issues with the guy, but he was trying to tell us stuff that he couldn't get out. And so then I was just sitting still. I have no idea what you're actually trying to tell me about. I'm just trying to have a nice night. So yeah.
Man. Great memories. Well, speaking of Christmas as well, you guys have lots of merch and things. So if anyone needs any Christmas present ideas, I mean, when this goes out, we're like a week out from Christmas, so you really have all your gifts bought. But
you should
have probably merchandise. Link underneath the episode. Go and check out their merch and buy things from them. Support the band.
Indeed, it massively helps us. We're all saving up for Ferraris, so please. Just get out. No, to be fair, it does massively help us. It's one of the very few streams that we can get any money from. That and the Patreon are the two kind of crutches that are keeping us up. So we really appreciate anybody who fancies it. Also, weirdly, the stuff that we do get is designed by this artist that we genuinely love. Like, he's one of our pals and he's amazing and never has time for anything because he's so busy. And so whenever we get like a new design or that, it's like we just love it. So we wouldn't do anything that we didn't like. So
yeah, and I mean, I've spoken again about this so much when I've had you on the show, but the art again, it's so you guys. It feels so unique to you, the band and stuff. It's part of it. I don't know. It's all part of it, isn't it? Your bands have a style, and I think you guys definitely have like a unique style, which I've always really liked about you.
I think the mad thing is like everybody tells you that. So everybody tells you to get it's hard because like there's a business there. As in, like, there's a business of how to do it, and what we've realized is that if you try too hard to just do something and it's not authentic, it's no longer valuable. So like, good example, like people who just sit and do content every day and hate it, right? We've tried this. We've literally tried this. We've challenged ourselves to do TikToks, right? And there's a reason that no one's engaging with them, because we're not engaging with the content while we make it, right? And I think that's one of the things that I've noticed is when you do just trying to be like authentic, when you get advice, everybody tries to tell you to tie everything together. Good, and that's one of the bits of advice that if anybody's listening who's in a band that we've had is that you want your music to sound like what you look like, and you want what you look like to sound what your music's like. You also want what you sound and look like to be what your merch is like, and what all of that just ties in. So that basically you start getting this brand around your identity, which is like, oh, this is Dictator. And what's fascinating is we were doing all of this stuff without knowing that, right? And I know it's like everybody these days is like became a bit of a buzzword about building your brand and your identity and stuff like that. But what's really cool is when hearing someone like you say, oh, it sounds so authentically you guys, is class, because we didn't necessarily know that, but because we have just been honest and we do it our way, it's starting to all come together. One of the big things as well is the music. We're starting to understand where we fit within the music space, as in we start to understand what our music sounds like, if that makes any sense. Because the whole time up to this point has been foraging for like not the new sound. Like if you watch Mighty Bush, like try to find the new sound, it's just genuinely like through trial and error we've found out ways that we like to sound. So therefore, when that hits, and then your identity alongside it hits, you start sounding like Dictator. You start looking like Dictator, and then the artwork starts seeming like Dictator, and then all of these things start to come together where you go like, oh, this is actually quality. And I think that's something that a lot of bands don't do. Good example, you have 4 of you on stage. Imagine one person in a suit and the other 3 in tracksuits, right? There's nothing wrong with that if that person is the suit guy. But how people perceive that is it's like, well, what are you? What do you look like? Who are you? What's your kind of identity there? Where versus, imagine 4 of were in tracksuits all in different colours or your own unique style within them. You start to form a picture of what these guys look like and who they are. And it's stuff like that that's class. Like, you know what I mean? Learning about that and understanding it, you have to know a little bit. Just don't get caught up in it.
And it all ties in for me as well. Like, I'm a bit of a copycat really, but I love like looking at, the fashion of music as well. Like, I love like when I go to a gig and I'm like, I fucking love his fucking outfit. You know what I mean? I was like, I really want a jacket like that.
Do you know the best thing about being in a band is you can wear stuff that you wouldn't wear to Tesco, right? So there's a lot of stuff that you would never. I remember when we got these parachute pants, like
they were class, man. I remember them.
Right? And but like I remember when this was at the back, very Gen Z of me, right? But basically they weren't fashionable. They were fashionable, but they were very much at the heart of what was coming up, right? And I remember the first time I stuck them on, I felt so uncomfortable, man. I was like, this is weird, because I was used to it when I grew up, skinny jeans. Then it was chinos for a bit, because like again, chinos was like that was our style, and we loved them and they were comfortable. Then I moved to these and I was like, oh my god, I'm like this, and then I wore them on stage, and you just have a different. It's just I don't care. You just don't care. Then you wear them on stage, and then people are like, no, that anybody came up and said I like your trousers, but like you know what I mean? It's stuff like that. Like, I like your X, and you're like, thanks, man. And it's stuff that you maybe weren't brave enough to wear, but you're brave enough to wear on stage. And then as soon as you're brave enough to wear it on stage, suddenly it starts snowballing for there. So mate, just get some baggy trousers, right? You'll be grand.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I like it. Another question just on next year, kind of as well. Well, I want to firstly say congrats, because I know one of your bucket lists for this year was to play abroad. You went to Barcelona, didn't you? Which looked amazing.
Valencia, and
I'll talk to this headmaster. Long part of Spain, not too far away from each other.
We played Valencia, mate. A little village just outside of it for Pro Weekend Fest. Outstanding, amazing. Was exhausted. This is one of those ones where you're like, on the outside it was class, but the kind of story with that was it was a showcase festival, and these showcase festivals are like the underworld of music, in terms of like, in a good way, not underworld in a bad way, but actually that's like the beating heart of what's happening. So like a lot of publishers, a lot of sync people, like as in the ones who get your music on TV, and a lot of management, a lot of like music industry experts are there, right? Now they're always there at loads of different festivals, but when we went, wasn't a particularly big one, and we were playing one of the showcase gigs, two of them. And so one of the showcase gigs was where they were hosting all of the talks, and it was down by the beach, right? And it was acoustic. And for us, like the equivalent is you're comfortable doing your podcast here, and then for the live show, you'll have seen the difference. Like you'll have just been like, oh God, I can't, you know what I mean? I can't cut things that I don't want to say. I can't do this, and this. And then, so then you become a different kind of version of it. And that's what we're like with music. Now, if you can imagine podcasting in front of people versus then adding in an acoustic version, well, it's actually like podcasting out in the middle of the Cowgate, surrounded by people with a microphone you've never held before, and no questions in front of you. It's like just a different. So we were actually really nervous about the acoustic gig, like really nervous about it, because it's not our show, it's not our brand, it's not what we do, and we had to really practice it and stuff. And that's like, not that we don't practice, but to really make sure it was on point. And we done it, and we nailed it, like genuinely nailed it, because we had fun, right? And the reason we had fun is we had a trumpet player with us, and she'd been jamming with us, but you couldn't really hear her. In our room, we've got like in-ears, and you can't really hear her that well when she plays stuff, and you're like, all right. But she was at the beach, she started playing, and we were like, all four of us just were like, that's amazing. Like, because it was the first time we'd heard her play it, and we were like, wow, this is outstanding. And we just had fun. We just genuinely had fun. And obviously the people who were watching picked up on that. And we met so many people who were incredibly helpful, and we were exhausted, we were bust, we were, it was sunny, and we were tired because our flight was delayed by 4 hours, right? So we got in at like 3 a.m, we were up at 8:30 the next day morning, we were just knackered. There was a problem in the hotel. We didn't have our room ready. We had to wait for all of these things. And then we had a great time. That full weekend was outstanding. It was everything that you would want as a band, like being able to play a gig in Spain. I got interviewed by Spanish Tele, mate. I got to crack out the P7 Spanish. I thought I was actually all right at speaking Spanish, right? Mm-hmm. My parents, they retired over there a wee while ago, so we go over there on holiday quite a bit and definitely pick up the language. I'm not the type of person to just be like, excuse me, mate. Like, you know what I mean? One thing thinking you've got a grasp of the language, another thing getting interviewed by the news, right? Because honestly, I was just like, what? So yeah, if you see the interview, they just cut to my English speaking weirdly.
I need to link this below. People are going to have to check this out. You just reminded me something as well, Michael, which I need to ask you. Which a friend of mine who came to the live show and has been a fan of your music ever since, she's asked me to ask you tonight, are you in a ScotRail advert? Can you confirm if this is true?
I am, I am. Yeah. Me and my wife, there
you go, Lisa. You have your answer. It is him in the ScotRail advert.
It is me. I've got my hair's down. I got styled for it. I was wearing makeup. But yeah, no, me and my wife are in it. It's actually my wife in the same shots as me. So you'll see her in the background. We spent a full day filming that video.
Pull it up right now, and the listeners can see it. There you go. Cool. There's an answer. That's just a question I could really have asked you off there, but we'll keep that in. We'll let the people.
By the way, I wish it was related to this like world I'm in, as in like I wish it was through someone. I wish it was like, such and such for DF was like, you want to do this? Or, no, completely separate and completely by chance. My wife had actually been selected for it, and they were like, we need an extra person. Do you know anyone? And she was like, my husband might be able to do it. And they were like, aye. Fine, just bring him along, see what happens. And then I turned up, and then we done it. And I was like, what? And then suddenly I thought, this will get all cut. And then I think there's a section where it's just me, and she's just staring at me like, you are.
I'm the frontman of Dictator.
I'm the reason that people are getting ScotRail trains these days. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Anyway, yes, it's me.
Class. And speaking of another thing as well. Next year you're going to try and go to New York, and this will come out after your fundraiser. But you got an amazing fundraiser at Sneaky's on Sunday, which I'm sad I can't make along to, but that'll be class.
No, I mean, really looking forward to it. New York is that was when we first started the band. We said we would love to play outside of the Central Belt. That was where the bar was. Okay. Wow. First couple of months we got a gig in Newcastle. We were like, wow, and then it just kept going. And me and Zach especially. We've always talked about playing New York. We just had this absolute kind of dream of playing in New York, and it just kind of fell in. One day we got an offer to play this festival, and we were like, "No way!" And like, just can't believe it. And like, ultimately, even with the fundraising that we've managed to do so far, it's gone a long way. We've got a gig at Sneaky Pete's. We've got loads of merch to sell, and blah 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 blah. But it's like the one thing I hadn't bet on is that not only are we going to New York, but actually our fans will probably be the reason that we've afforded to go there, which is amazing. Like, that's outstanding. And you get lost in the context sometimes of what you're up to and what you're trying to achieve. And that's successful. Like, that's outstanding. Like, you know what I mean? That's the stuff we could have dreamt of when we were younger. So buzzing for it, man. Assuming we get in, we'll see how the country is back then. There was a video of sports team. Sports swim, but sports team got their van broken into and they stole all the laptops. I don't know if you've seen this. No. Well, so basically, mate, they were at like a Starbucks drive-through, and then these guys with guns just come out and start going through their van, and then they run up and like, excuse me, and then they turn around and they've got their guns, and everybody runs in, and like the police wouldn't come until they'd filled an online form or something. It was like insane. So like my missus seen it and was like, well, I was like, no, it's fine. We've got to New York. And then, like last week, the United Healthcare boy just got done in the middle of the street. And I'm just like, we'll see. But yes, right now it's on the cards to go. We'll see if the country is still going to allow people in. By then, we shall see.
But your fans are class. Like, every time I have you on the show, your fans are always retweeting the episodes, like messaging me to say, oh, I love, they're really, it's a nice community to like jump into sometimes. I do enjoy it.
It's amazing, man. The weirdest thing, because like we know them all. And like the weirdest thing about it is how weird, it's like amazing. But it's just that like we forget these things, and because we've got like a Patreon and stuff like that, so we're communicating with them quite a bit and stuff. And it's like you'll do something mental, mate. Like there'll be a gig where you take last minute and you're just like, what? And then suddenly there's someone there with a Dictator t-shirt on, and you're like, how did you this is sold at this gig. How did you know that? And it's amazing. Like, honestly, that's like one of those feelings that you get where you're like, oh man, like, I don't know. It's like a constant reminder of why you do it. And yeah, so it's class, mate. We appreciate it.
It's class. And something really nice I saw on as well, that people have been buying tickets even though they can't make the gig and leaving them on the door for people that can't afford them, which is a lovely gesture as well.
It's amazing, man. Because people wanted to help us, they just were buying tickets. So, like, for instance, if they couldn't make the evening, they were buying for the matinee and the evening and just saying give the evening away. So we might be playing an empty room, but you know what I mean, we'll be pocketing it all, so we'll be fine. It will be on the way to New York after it. So no, but it's amazing, mate. Honestly, like the support and stuff, and the people rally around you when you kind of ask for help and stuff, and that's like fascinating, because we're not asking, like, we're not saying like, oh guys, like, so hard for us. It's like, we're just genuinely like, we've just been offered this amazing gig. We can't afford it. Can anybody help? This is what we're willing to do in return. And getting that reaction is just outstanding, man. So genuinely love it. Really appreciate it.
That's cool. That's really class. Another Christmas question for you then. I'm just making these up on the spot, but they're very simple. Like, you and the band are all have to bring something to Christmas dinner. What do you think everyone would bring? What would you bring, and what do you think everyone else would?
Right. Let's go. Let's start off with Zach. Zach's probably the fussiest, right? So I think, and I mean that because, like, see, when we book to go, I would say I would be the fussiest, but I'm actually not. So, like, see, when we book, so I book all the travel for the band. So whenever we stay in a hotel, he's the first person to be like, "This is rubbish," right? He'll no date himself. But he does a lot, by the way. It's not like he doesn't do anything, but he'll no date himself. He's the first person that. So what I imagine Zach would bring, like, his own condiments or something like that. Some just, like, you know what I mean? He'd bring all the sauces because he'd have a specific sauce. And he's no, it's just that's what I'm thinking right now in this moment is that Zach would be like, no, I'm bringing this. Alan, big, chucking his instruments everywhere. He's bringing a big gammon joint. Big gammon joint, or whatever he decides, whatever he's bringing the meat, right? He's gonna bring it, and then we'll see what happens. I think Joe, what would Joe bring? Actually, weirdly, Joe's the type of guy who would have like this outstanding gravy. Do you know what I mean? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, as in, like, he's the type of, like, the random thing where you'd just be like, you wouldn't expect him to cook or do whatever, and then he'd be like, oh no, I make the gravy every year. And you're like, what? He's like, yeah, no, I make the gravy every year, and it's the best gravy you ever had in your life. Myself, I'm going to bring the potatoes. Okay. Nice. I'm going to bring those crispy tatties, roast potatoes, triple fried. Yes, please. And I think between the four of us, we could make a mean Christmas dinner. So that's what I'm saying. Zach will be raging that I've said he brings his own condiments. I'm actually really glad that I said that. But yes,
good stuff. And in terms of music, you personally, like, what sort of Christmas songs? What's your go-to? Did you like Christmas songs? Do you want to feel that find a bit annoying, or do you quite enjoy it? Are you partial to a bit of Christmas tunes?
Partial, very partial. Not beyond me. I love a one. I think one of the things, it's the most wonderful time of the year. Andy Williams. That's that's the Christmas tune for me. There was a couple, a spaceman came traveling.
Oh, that's a good song, man. I like that.
I absolutely love that. There was also, this is slightly different. I'm going to get the name of the song up now, right? When we were younger, there was a band from Germany called Freiheit, Freiheit, and they have a song called Keeping the Dream Alive, right? And I don't think it's specifically about Christmas, but when I was younger, certainly, like, it was either on a Now This Is Christmas album or something. Fascinated by this song, right? So my favorite song is that, because it's just reminiscent of my childhood and all of these good things and stuff like that. But right now, right now I'm into It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year. But I used to work in retail when I was younger, and like, mate, they start playing it for like September, right? And you just get these burned into your head. And I just, for a long time I was like, ugh. But I'm into the spirit of things, as you can see behind me. That's what I go for. What about you? You got a favourite?
It's such a basic answer though, but like, probably Fairy Tale New York is just the they did a version at Shane McGowan's funeral last year, and I really like that version of it. It's a really good cover of the song. It's a classic though.
Have you heard the Christy Moore version on YouTube, not on Spotify? He does an acoustic version of Fairy Tale New York. Outstanding. Like one of the best things I've ever heard. Love Christy Moore, and he's the type of thing where he's like, he starts off and he's like, I was walking down a Shannon like that, and you know that way where he just starts telling a story as he goes. Man, it's phenomenal. So if you like Fairy Tale New York, go and listen to the Christy Moore acoustic version.
I'll check that out. And also, so if you could cover a Christmas song, what would you think your band would have a stab at doing?
So we done one 2 years ago, and it was like brutal because it was just singing and you didn't get a break, and I can't remember the name of it. But it was like, I remember just being exhausted, right? I'm going to say we'd do Christmas in Hollis by Run DMC, because just how we've expanded and we love getting like guest MCs and stuff like that, and that's the dream right there. So Christmas in Hollis, but a Dictator version. That's what we'd go
for. So 2025 Christmas, you're going to have that.
Love to write a Christmas song.
Another question I'm asking is, what would your Christmas song be called right now on the spot? What would you call it?
Christmas is actually quite sad, so look after yourself and don't get caught up in it. What would I call it? I don't know what I'd call it yet, but I do think it would be I like a wintry, White Winter hymnal by Fleet Foxes at all. That sort of thing. I really love that vibe. Glass Vegas released an album, a Christmas album, where they done Silent Night in a church in Germany somewhere. I think it was maybe Berlin. I would love to do like a Christmas EP at some point. Like that would be the dream, but not yet. The reason I say not yet is because we're just not there yet, right? We're still figuring out how we sound like and what we want to do, and we've got big things in the horizon that we're really working towards. So that just encompasses everything that you're trying to do. But I reckon after the first album, maybe if that goes well, a second album in between those two, maybe say we Christmas EP. Don't know what I'd call it. But I will have a think, and you'll be the first to know. So we'll see.
Good. If you're watching a film at Christmas, what would your go-to be? What are you sticking on first?
Santa Claus, Tim Allen.
Not seen that in years, actually.
Yeah, honestly, that's one of my, again, childhood, growing up, that was one of my favourites. But the Santa Claus, that's one of my favourites. I always wanted to be, I don't know if you remember the elves who come and bust them out of prison at all. Like we watched it like 2 days ago, and they're in ELFS, right, which is like, I can't remember what it stands for, but it's basically like the CIA, but elves, right? See, when I was younger, mate, I wanted to be in ELFS. I wanted to be in them. One of the most depressing things about that film, like genuinely, is that he is something like 33 and he's an old man, right? So the character is like, they say something along the lines of like, you're a 33 or 34, it might even be a wee bit older, but this guy's like what we would peg as around a 50, 60-year-old guy. And it's just, it's mental, because you're like, was that the frame of reference for what it was like to be that age back then? Oh, it's mental. So yeah, the Santa Claus.
I saw one of those, that's a really good answer. I saw one of those tweets the other day. It's like what 30 used to look like, like 30 now. And it's like, I think it's George from Seinfeld at like 30. And then it's like Timothy Chalamet. And I'm like, yeah, that fuck, Timothy Chalamet. I mean, I'm really 30 to be fair. I don't look too bad.
No, but mate, it's like, so best person, Lewis Hamilton, right? You look at him, I think he's 40, or he's 30. I think he's 40. And mate, doesn't he look at it? I also think a lot of it's a mentality though. Where actually, like, a lot before, like, when you see, like, this used to be 30, is that, like, I remember in my granddad's era, that was, like, from 30 onwards, it was slippers and paper era. Like, it was just put your feet up on and put them in the slippers, and that was you almost, like, working towards retirement. Whether it is now, it's just like, mate, we're going to probably live to about 150 and work to 149. So, you know what I mean? We need to do what we can to look after ourselves. We'll see.
I don't feel like I should have really said I'm nearly 30 when I'm 28. So that's actually quite. I'm going to be getting friends going, shut the fuck up.
Shut up, man. I know. To be fair, I think when you get past 21, you just didn't mentally age. You just don't. You just sit there and you're just like, I actually distinctly remember between 18 and 21, a big difference. 21 felt old, and I was like, I'll be an adult then. That was my big thing. I'll be an adult then. 18, I was like, still like young and reckless. For 21 onwards, I've never felt different. It's just doesn't. I don't think you do.
I think it might be 25 for me. I don't know. I feel since 25, I've been like, this is actually quite good. I quite like it, weirdly.
One thing I would say is the older you get a lot more comfortable in yourself. And this is one of the things. I mean, I'm not old, mate. I'm not like but genuinely from 25 onwards, if anybody's listening, I think when you're younger, you go like, oh my God, I'm going to be like, you know what I mean? Like, and then when you get to like 28 to 30, you're probably seeing friends and stuff have families, houses, fancy cars, and you're sitting there going like, oh my God, I'm behind. I'm never going to be at the same level they're at. And it's everybody's just on their own little thing. But that thing that you maybe wouldn't have done that you like. So like I don't even know, like there's people I know who like Lego, right? I've never been mad into Lego. I was when I was younger, but I always remember this thing, I would never have touched it. And I'm like, no. Whether it's actually you get to this point where you're like, well, who cares if I do a wee bit of Lego? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's things like that you just like, I remember being in work and there was older people and they were all doing this Lego and I thought they were just a bit strange. I was like, you were doing like Lego cars and that was a bit odd. But then you almost get to this point, and it's not like I'm a big Lego enthusiast, but as an example where you just stop caring. You just don't care. You're like, yeah, but I don't care if that's my thing. If that's my thing, I'm just going to do it and enjoy it. And I don't have to prove to anybody that I'm this or that. You know what I mean? And I think that does genuinely come with age, where you stop caring about what other people think, and you just do you. Like you start, I don't even know, playing the PlayStation. You maybe would have been like, no, but I don't play the PlayStation. I don't do that. I don't waste my life. Whereas now you're like, of course I do. I play it every minute I can. You know what I mean? So, so don't worry, mate. You've got plenty miles left in the tank, right?
No, for sure. And this segues us kind of nice on to, I want to talk about Stan Smith, because I was saying I should have waited and told you in the interview instead of telling you off air, but that was my number one song on Spotify Wrapped this year. So I am generally a true Dictator fanboy. There you go.
Love it.
But I love that song because I know you were saying as well, it's kind of a bit different to what he's normally put out. But what I loved about that song is it's all about following your dream and feeling a bit weird about it, maybe as well, because it's not the conventional thing. And it's some of the lyrics in that song, man. I'm just like, yes, that's where I feel like I'm at as well.
I'm really, really glad it resonated with you, man, because it's like one of those things where I actually remember we had a chat because the lyrics were a bit cheesy. That was the one thing I remember, like some of the feedback that I got. And I'm an open book with doing music and stuff, as in like writing songs and writing lyrics. I'm just very like, people can get really caught up in it. Really hard to do. I'm assuming like if you're writing stuff as well, like you put some of your own personality on the page. And so actually if people don't like that, it's actually a bit of a dig at you, it feels like, when it's not. It's not like that at all. So we're actually really good at kind of flowing these things around. And I remember I was just like, but this is like just genuinely authentic. I was just like, this is how I feel. This is what it feels like. And there's a line, still trying to figure out what it means to succeed. That concept.
I think that was the line that really, like, I felt it here. Like, do you know what I mean?
But that's genuinely, that's where I was at. Because ultimately we have massive ambition, we have this drive, we have these goals and set our targets on doing and achieving things, and then we achieved a lot of what we set out to do. And as we started achieving it, and also seeing people who were living the dream that we had, maybe it isn't the dream. And actually, maybe and we felt this intense pressure last year, right? No mad, it wasn't like anything, but it sucked the fun out of music for us. Right, all of us felt it. Like daft things, like we weren't listening to as much music, we weren't as engaged and stuff like that. And we kind of had a proper sit down, and what it was is we toured a lot, and not anywhere near as some of these like really, really successful artists, but they also have a different version of it. You know what I mean? Like they're able to get home a lot. They're no loading in their equipment to a pub at like you know, we went in the afternoon after working and stuff like this, and we were just burst. And we sat down and we were like, what is it we're actually trying to do here? Do we have an ambition, a goal, an end target, or are we just wanting to enjoy doing the thing? And I actually think that process of when we wrote that EP was very much that. And that song for me personally was that I remember wanting to be like a musician when I was younger, right? And you have this thing of like, I'm not a musician yet. Why? Like, well, what does it take to get? And I think that's what it was like for me. Is it was like I want to go back and almost be like, imagine what I could see, and if I could see myself at that age, would I think I was successful? Probably. But right now, I'm trying to work out like what it is. What is the definition? What do you want from it? Because like you see people who are really successful, and you would recognize them in the street. And when you're younger, you really want that. You really want that notoriety and the validation that comes with that, and the fame and the yes, and you feed off it. And then I do genuinely think that having seen people go through it, it stops becoming a novelty and starts becoming actually quite harmful, because it can become very overwhelming. And I think that's like that song especially was just all about that. It was just all about that feeling of like, you're doing all right. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and actually like doing the thing is the main thing. You didn't have to be like number one in the charts to be successful, because bet your bottom dollar people who are number one in the charts are probably going, my peer has done 10 number ones in the charts and I've only had one. And I think it's important to sort of reset that. And just actually, we did like a big chat as a band, and we actually had this real honest, like, let's just enjoy it and stop putting weight onto it, stop putting expectation, and not about trying to strive for more, but just stop expecting that the world owes you anything and just do the thing. And I'm not joking, as soon as we've done that, all four of us have been enjoying it. We enjoy it. We like making music. We're obviously in the process of trying to write an album, and I think it's the healthiest place for us to be, because we're only doing what we can. If people don't like that, fine, but stop trying to control that. Just enjoy it and do your own thing. And if it strikes, great. If not, brilliant. You've done your own thing. So I'm glad you like it, mate.
That's a very, very lovely answer. And I totally feel you as well. I think that's been a big thing for me. And what's lovely about having people back on the podcast like yourself is we see the journey we go on over the years. Because I mean, I first had Zach on the show like over 3 years ago. Yeah. If me and Zach had said to each other then, like, with you'll be here in 3 years, we'd probably both be like, that's fucking class. But then you get to the place and you're like, well, I've still not done this shit. And it's like, no, just enjoy where you're at. Like, it's so hard to like, you know what I mean? Because the goalposts constantly shift, and then you're never happy. And what does success actually mean as well? It doesn't. I think
that's a big thing for us. Is that actually, like, for us, that was our chat about what success actually is, and that there's that old analogy about like I'm not going to say it because I hate when people regurgitate it, but you know, the boy who's the fisherman and he fishes every day, and he gets back home every night with his family, catches a couple of fish, whereas versus the boy who's like, let's monetize this, baby, let's get this, let's get you 100 fisheries and you can retire and spend your entire time with your family. And he's like, but I'm spending time with my family every day. Well, how would I want to work for 40 years and then spend time with my family after that forever? Like, surely this is enough. And I think that's the genuine bar that we've tried to set, is that like, can this be enough? And the answer that we got to was yes, it can. And ultimately from that moment, we were like, oh, this is amazing. We love this. It's amazing. And actually, like, and I think you have to go through this process of like, and me personally, I'll look back at interviews and I've got these ambitions, I've got these goals, I've got these targets, and I'm like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Same in my professional life and stuff. Now, when I look back at some of the interviews, they're like, how hard is it to have a sustainable income for a musician? And I'm like, oh, it's terrible. But we have, but I'm like, but I didn't do it for the money. I did it because I enjoy it. So actually, we don't rely on this for income. We do it because we enjoy creating. And I'm like, I would never have said that. Where there is now, it's like an authentic, like, no, I just enjoy making music. I can't guarantee I'm going to get anything off the back of it. Great. because now anybody who hears the music's just hearing the music we want to make. Amazing. You know what I mean? They're not hearing like a formulaic version of something that maybe isn't us to try and get something off the back of it. So, and I think the same is probably true in some areas of what you do, is that actually when you can see what you've achieved and what you do, and like even being able to have a successful podcast, right? But in your head, it's probably not successful enough, right? Or the views aren't big enough, or the streams aren't big enough. And we have exactly the same thing. But actually, look at you, look at what you've achieved, and it's consistency. And the big thing for me is if you can work out how to enjoy that, then it's amazing. It doesn't matter. If one person listens to it or a million people listen to it, if you can find a way to enjoy it, or find a way to do your own thing, it's going to be 10 times easier because, you know what I mean? So honestly,
as well. I think the conversations are better when I'm enjoying it and just doing it for
because you don't. Because what are we going to get off the back of it? Nothing. It doesn't matter. It's just enjoyable. Nice to speak to you. You know what I mean?
So it's class. No, that's really nice. A great thing that sort of feels like a good like sort of reflective part of the year, because it's also this is the last episode we'll be doing this year. So what's your song of the year been, or your sort of album you really resonated with in 2024?
So for me, there's been a couple of albums. I think Fontaine's DC's taken the world by storm.
Unreal.
Like
I saw them man, and they were unbelievable. If they're on their peak, they're on their peak.
I do genuinely. So like, it's probably hard to see past that romance. And I do genuinely. I don't know. I think what they've managed to do. One thing, when they released the songs, the first song, they were like, sounds awfully like Dictator, and we know their tour manager, ex-tour manager, and we were like, have you been sending them some of our unreleased stuff? He's like, no, I haven't. I do think big thing with them, and why I'm going to just say them right now, they were churning out albums left, right, and centre. And that's actually something that people kind of advocated against doing, right? So they actually said, don't do that. Build a bit of scarcity, build a bit of time in between, make people want to listen to your music and do whatever. And they just genuinely went, nah, you're all right, and cracked on and basically released album after album after album after album, toured and toured and toured and toured and toured. And what's fascinating now is that we've been following them. Zach's really good with stuff like this early. So way back to their first album, he's latched on. He's been to see them. He's like he knows them, like as in he knows the music and stuff like that. For me, I'm always I'm the worst musician you could imagine, right? Like we'll be going by and I'll be like, oh, there's such and such, and I'm like, who's that? And he's like, are you joking? But it'll be something the equivalent to like Ringo Starr. Like it'll be like, there's Ringo Starr, and I'm like, brilliant, who's that? And he's like, what do you mean, who is that? And I'm like, oh, all right. I like honestly idiot when it comes to stuff like that. So, but through him getting fed these tunes and stuff like that, and then eventually started to become. What's fascinating is people are acting as if these guys have came out of nowhere.
Yeah, I find that mad because I'm a huge fan of them. I've loved them as well since the first album, and like I've seen them on tour several times, and I find it a bit weird how big they are. But I'm trying not to be a gatekeeper as well because I think that's annoying. Like people are allowed to listen to them, but when I went to their gig in London, I was like, what the fuck? These guys are huge now. There's so many different demographic here. I think it's class. I'm really happy for them. Not that they need me to be happy for them, but, I am.
No, but that's the thing, man. Is it's like you think about the albums. What I don't know if is it four albums?
They've done
so
4
far?
albums, yeah.
Yeah. So like basically they've done 4 albums in 4 or 5 years. Something that was previously not a thing, right? And people are now fascinated at how big they are. Like, wow, these guys have came out of nowhere, and they've worked really hard. But also, this album is probably, if you listen to the lead singer talking about them, this is the first album. He basically was like, this is the first album I've been able to enjoy because they're constantly being on to the next thing. And it's fascinating because ultimately for them is that they've worked up to a point where probably this is how they've always wanted to sound. And they've been trying to get themselves to the point where they do it. And instead of failing fast and hard in the background by doing 100 demos and putting them to their label and 100 getting rejected and then 101st they release, they've been releasing. They're like, nah, we're a band. We want to make music. We want to do this stuff. So why would we not? And that's why for me, that's the album of the year. for in my eyes anyway, just in terms of success. Million and one other ones, but that's just it's resonated with me like a lot.
Yeah.
And I think going for that.
And I always ask when you guys are on, or when any local bands and musicians are on, but any local artists that you want to quickly plug this year as well before we start to wrap up.
Yes, there is. I keep getting their name mixed up. But I might have to put an honourable mention onto their after this. You have to put a link to them because one of the things I've learned about this is not to say the wrong name, because there was one where I put them I put their name up and they were like, no, it's not that, and I was like, no. I'm right, I've got them here. Heavy Weather. Heavy Weather. We know them from West Lothian, up and coming. Wherever you look. As outside of that, you've got the Cartoons. I've mentioned already some bands from West Lothian that we love. But that's my new tip. Less than 1,000 followers on Instagram. Let's see if we can get them up to 1,000 after this.
Definitely. And shout out to Blackhall as well. Blackhall Records and all those people doing amazing stuff.
Been amazing to work with those guys. And years ago, when we went to kind of jump in with them, we weren't sure who we were. Vice versa, they didn't know who we were. We didn't know who they were, and we kind of took a bit of a leap of faith, if you want to call it that. Best thing we've ever done, right? We done an EP with them, and they spent money and whatever, and we're still paying that back, right? But the outside of that, what we've learned as a group. So actually, and they've got new artists now, and the other artists are phenomenal. And I think what's amazing is, rather than seeing it as a transactional thing and just doing it and then going, it genuinely feels like the whole lot of us have risen together and continue rising, and also want to be working with one another and want the best for each other. And where we had this in our mind of getting a big label at one point, because we did, it was so intense, and we were like, we need someone who can cope with doing this, and this. And ultimately, they're a small label. They just started. We didn't think it was fair for the demands that we were putting on them at the start as well. And I remember us saying, like, listen, if we can get something bigger, we'll see. But completely shifted, because we really, really like them. We really, really respect them. We know how they work. We love how they work. And they're really good people. They've got our interests at heart, and they know we've got their interests at heart, and how hard that is to try and get in an industry that is notoriously bad for that. Genuinely massive shout out to them. And I think it's long may it continue as well. That's
and in case they're listening to this, I'm going to put it on the record. I'm going to say it loud, because I'm bad sometimes for getting back to people, but I will email you and we'll get that episode sorted, and we'll get that Waverley episode sorted as well, because I never got back. I need to reply, so I'm putting it on the record. I'm admitting that.
I'll say no. He messaged me after saying no chats. No, exactly. Mate. Get them sorted. Get them on, because they're amazing. Really good to talk to, and I really respect what they're doing.
No, class. 2 more questions for you though before we wrap up. But best sporting moment of the year, I'm going to say for me, it was listening to your Scotland song that you did the wee cover of in Munich when we got pumped 5-1. But it was good to be able to listen to your tune there. I did put it on that day.
To be fair, I know that some of the stuff like with that Scotland song has been amazing. Best sporting moment of the year. That is a good one. I'm a big Celtic fan, right? Yeah. The Champions League run that we've currently got.
It's been very good, man. I'm happy for you.
Currently, it's very hard to look by that our first Champions League victory, and God knows how long, is going to be my sporting moment of the year. And I apologise, because it's just so green biased. But that's just me. That's what it is.
You know, quick shout out to HL7 as well. You got your Henrik Larsson song out there, and it's a tune. So
exactly, mate. So that's why the first year that we've won in the Champions League, and God knows how long, since Brendan Rodgers, I think, actually. The same year that we released HL7. Is that a coincidence? I think not.
There we go.
Not. Exactly.
Good stuff, man. Well, just to close off with, you'd had an interesting year, as you say, and it sounds like you've done a lot of sort of reflections of the band and stuff as well. But what's your sort of highlight of 2024 been personally and with the band?
So
apart from the Scotland Advert, obviously.
Well, that was actually 2 years ago, right? They've rinsed it and repeated it. That's the one thing no one's picked up on, right? The amount of messages I've had about that Scotland Advert as well is unreal. But no, personally, 2024 has been one of the best years we've ever had together. Just personally, it's been a really challenging year professionally. So I work in what I do is work. Like our company got bought over, and there's been a whole host of change. And one of the big things for me is, and where it's kind of culminated to just now, I've actually left, which is mental, to go and do my own thing, right? Which is scary but exciting. And I think one of the things that I find fascinating about that is that, like, personally, the growth I've had this year has been outstanding, and it's came through genuine discomfort, right? So for me in 2024, without getting all like mad deep, we started deep, might as well deep, but we lost our little dog at the start of the year.
Right? As well, man. I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah. No, but mate, fascinating, like, to see how it was the first time losing a pet. I had no idea. Like, I mean, I knew loved them to bits, but the pets are so like it's not one way traffic, if you know what I mean. Like, they just love you. They just love you. Yeah. Even on your worst days and your best days, they love you. They're always there for you. And there's been grandparents and stuff that I've lost that I haven't had that heartbreak before, man. And it was brutal. But this year wasn't the bad year. Last year was a bad year. Last year he kind of got cancer and stuff, and it was a horrific year for us. This year we got to say goodbye on our terms, right? And as weirdly as that's a horrible start to anybody's year, it wasn't. It was a really, really peaceful thing for us. And I don't know, mate, like, I've just had to work through some shit, and it's made me better. And you know, I still carry a bit of it, and it's fascinating to see just how grief impacts everybody. But that, coupled with what I had to do for work, has just it's just been mental. I also gave up alcohol last year, just towards the kind of tail end, and this has been an entire year of kind of being sober. And mate, I've actually really enjoyed this year, because like I've had to, I don't know, again, so deep, but I've got to kind of know a wee bit more about me and stuff like that. So like I've had a phenomenal year, as has my wife, and it's been really strange. We've also just got a new little puppy, right? which is a lot more energy than I think either one of us were going to bargain for. But it's been an amazing year for us together. We've seen amazing things. We've done amazing things, and I've really enjoyed it. There is no way you can describe like the highlights from a music perspective. Being able to play a gig in Valencia, being able to play some of the things that the festivals we've been able to do. We played Isle of Wight. That's been a dream of mine since childhood, and I got to do it this year, right? So all of these things, man, it's been one of the best years I've ever had. And I don't know, I'm looking forward to next year now. Whereas I remember last year I was really worried about this year. Really worried, because I was like, everything was kind of going south and things were changing, and I had no context. So yeah, it's been a great year from a band perspective, from my own personal perspective. Just been loads of growth, mate. Boring stuff, but it's nice to see.
I don't think it's bored at all. I totally relate to that as well. I've had one of those years where like I don't want to go into it on air, but like the start of the year was a bit rough for me, and then but from it, it's like the best thing that happened in a way. Like I feel like I was and so cringy and a bit cheesy to say, but it did feel like being reborn almost. Like it's made me do the work, and I've just looked at myself, and I feel like a totally different person in the best way. And I think it's helped the podcast grow as well, which has been good.
See, as well for you, it's probably like forced a bit of a mirror up to yourself, and maybe there's things that personally you weren't maybe I don't know, facing or doing or aware of even, right? When things like that happen, it's fascinating, because it's really scary. It's really scary when you're at the start of it or in the midst of it. And again, we'll talk about mental health and stuff like that, but not just talking about it, like not just saying like, let's talk. It's amazing to have seen a little bit of adversity, what it can do, and how you can come through it and feel better. And actually not just feel better, is that you go like, oh, I didn't know that I had to be this version of myself. And actually without that adversity, without that thing happening, maybe I wouldn't have been. And so actually it's not always a bad thing. The worst thing at the moment in time isn't always the worst thing at the end of it. And I don't know, that this year's definitely taught me that. And it sounds like you've kind of learned a wee bit of that yourself, which is class, because not just the podcast, you're probably becoming like a more rounded human being, right? Which is good. You know what I mean? Nothing about the podcast, all about you. It's a good thing, mate. So yeah, glad to hear that.
No, completely. But you got to get into those late 20s hobbies. You got to get into all that, like, you know, fitness, bullshit. It's good.
Pick up golf, get to the gym. Yeah, it's brutal. It's fun. It's fun, mate. You know, you'll love it eventually.
Well, listen, here's the 2020. Try that again. Here's the 2025. Merry Christmas, and thank you so much for coming back on the show. Massive shout out to you and the band. Like, I love you guys to bits. I love seeing what you're up to online, and I'm a big supporter. So pleasure having you back on the show, man.
Thank you very much for having us. And same goes for you. Like, love seeing just plugging away, right? Consistency is like the big thing in a lot of the arenas that we're in, and it's amazing to just constantly see you uploading to TikTok, uploading to Instagram, and sometimes it can feel like an empty void, but it's just a reminder that you're steadily growing. And I hope we can come back in a couple of years' time, in the 2 years I'll be even more successful, another couple of 100 followers. You never know. Nah, but you know what I mean? It'll be good, mate. It's nice to see. So thank you very, very much for having us again. It's always a pleasure.